All right, welcome everyone to our pilot National Cooperative Soil Survey seminar. I am Cory Owens with the Natural Resources Conservation Services Soil and Plant Science Division, where I am a national training coordinator who focuses on partners training. We're going to kick off today's sessions with welcome and introduction of our hosts and our speakers, but I want to let everyone know that we already know from learning about things and piloting that we're already going to go over time a little bit. So we understand if folks don't have any more than the 2 hours that we've allotted to the seminar, we are recording everything, and this whole session will be posted to the NRCS's Soil and Plant Science Division YouTube channel, and that link will go out to all the folks who have been associated with the calendar invitation for this meeting. So that's my big introduction. I'd like to start with welcoming David Limbo from the NRCS to give us a brief welcome to the session. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
All right. Well, thank you, Cory. I am not going to go online with a video simply to save a little bandwidth. I think everybody can understand how that goes now. So everybody, welcome. First ever partners training seminar. Great to see as many folks here, and there's still folks coming in. So yeah, keep coming. Good to see as many people from other agencies, organizations, as well as our own interested in the soil data. From the Soil and Plant Science Division, we are committed to providing the best scientifically based information about soils and ecosystem for managing our land. And we definitely believe that soils are essential to life. They are the foundation, and as I like to say, if you know soils, you know life. And if there were no soils, there would be no life. So just something to think about. The division does provide the authoritative soils data for the country. So yay for us, yay for all of you who support that. And part of that support comes from the National Cooperative Soil Survey. This is a partnership of federal, regional, state, local agencies, private entities, and institutions. In other words, anybody who is interested in soils and interested in working with us. Quite frankly, that should be everybody, but I might be a little biased on that. Again, the partnership works to cooperatively investigate, inventory, document, classify, interpret, disseminate, publish. In other words, get all the information out there about soils. But it's not just soils. We also have the plants database, and plants is an acronym that I can never remember what it is. It's plants list of and taxonomy something. So I apologize to all of the folks that use that database that I cannot remember that acronym. We also deal with ecosystems through our ecological site descriptions and state and transition models. This is ramping up even more than it has been in the past and more critical towards management. So it's part of what we do. We look at soil change through investigating and documenting dynamic soil properties. This is part of the inventory. And one of the things with the division, we are mandated by Congress to inventory the soils and ecosystems of the United States. We also do measuring, monitoring, reporting, and verification. And that acronym I do remember, MMRV. So again, lots of acronyms that you will hear. So we're looking there at soil carbon, but other properties as well. And this is related to the Inflation Reduction Act, greenhouse gas monitoring, as well as other aspects. We're looking at how management is affecting that, and also looking at climate and hydrologic data through our SCAN program, and that is in conjunction with the National Water and Climate Center. And SCAN, if you don't know that acronym, that is Soil Climate Analysis Network. So again, another more acronyms. So these seminars are designed to bring you the best quality training and the development about the soil information is to the largest audience. Hopefully you will have lots of questions, both during this seminar, but also later. We love questions, so don't hesitate to get back to us on that. There will be more topics looked at. So at the end of this session, there will be a poll to get your feedback. All feedback is welcome. Do not hold back. If we don't hear from you, we are going to believe everything is absolutely perfect. And I know in my heart of hearts that that is never true. So we need to hear from you. So as you move through today, listen to the seminar, continue to get dirty as you dig into soil data. Remember to delve beyond the soil pit and look at the environment, because this is not just about soils. This is about where soils sit in the environment, how it interacts with the environment, how soils react to management, so that we can all do a better job. So thank you for being here. Thank you to the organizers. It's going to be a great seminar, so enjoy it. So back to you, Cory.
Thank you, Dave Limbo. All right, next up, I've got Andy Coulter with the U.S. Forest Service.
Hi all, my name is Andy Coulter. I'm the National Soils Program Lead for the National Forest System of the U.S. Forest Service, based out of the national headquarters in D.C. I am really thrilled to be a part of the inaugural NCSS Partner Seminar today. I believe this effort will be a great opportunity to further our collective strengths and knowledge in soils between all the partners. I look forward to many more of these seminars, and thank you to NRCS for putting this first seminar together. Back to you, Cory.
Awesome, thank you. Next up, we've got Jason Kenworthy from the National Park Service.
Hey, everybody. I'm here in Lakewood, Colorado, representing the National Park Service Geologic Resources Division and the Geology and Soil Resource Inventory programs. So the Park Service is, I think, we're the most conservation focused of the land management agencies, and we have a relatively large staff, but literally zero soil scientists within the Park Service. And so the partnership we have with NRCS is fundamental for us being able to, do soil science and work with soils in our parks with the spectacular scenery, wildlife features and ecosystems that we are tasked to preserve. So really excited that this is now a thing, and stoked that we could be here on day one. So thanks, Cory, for putting it together. And yeah, just like Andy said, we and our staff look forward to participating in lots more of these moving forward.
Awesome, thank you. And of course, Ron McCormick with the Bureau of Land Management.
Yeah, hi, Ron McCormick. I'm the headquarters ecologist, soil scientist, stationed in Portland, Oregon. And I just want to thank Dr. Limbo and the Federal Lands Advisory Group. We've been talking about doing this for years, and finally Cory and her team have pulled it off. And I'm also very happy to see 41 plus BLMers here as consumers of the products from the NRCS and the Soil Plant Division. These are the data we need to use, and hopefully we will continue to do these over the years. So thanks again, Cory, and talk to you later.
Awesome, thank you. All right, now I'd like to invite our speakers for today's program to turn their cameras on. We're going to do our introductions now so that we can roll into our content. So once our featured speakers pop on, Kyle, would you like to introduce yourself? Oh, you're muted, Kyle.
Thanks, Cory. Yeah, I'm Kyle Stevens. I'm located in Portland, Oregon, but I'm the National Database Manager for the National Soil Survey Center, which is actually located in Lincoln, so I'm a remote employee.
Thank you. Tammy?
Good morning. Happy to be here. I am on the National Soil Survey Center staff, the Soil Business System staff, and specifically the Soils Hotline. And my role is supporting these applications. So good to be here. Thank you.
Awesome. Jay?
Good morning. I'm Jay Skovlin. I'm also on the National Soil Survey Center staff on the Soil Business Working Group. Pleased to be here.
Thank you. And then Shawn.
Hi, I'm Shawn Salley. I'm a soil scientist with the National Cooperative Soil Survey, or the National Soil Survey Center, and I live in Las Cruces, New Mexico. I will be talking about our ecology database, which is called EDIT. That stands for the Ecosystem Dynamics Interpretive Tool that houses all of our ecological site information and land management knowledge. Thanks,
Awesome,
Cory.
thanks. So Shawn is the and more that you had in our flyer, all those great things and more. We added Shawn at the end. And then I'm filling in for Tiffany Allen. She had a conflict, so I'll be talking about the stuff that she was going to talk about today. So with that, I'm going to turn my camera off and pass it off to Kyle Stevens. Again, as you join, please introduce yourselves in the chat so we can see who's here today. As Kyle gets his presentation going, we'll continue to admit folks and we'll get the session underway.
And Cory, are you seeing the slides?
Not yet.
Okay. Should be coming
now
through now.
Yeah, now it's starting to share. All right, I see you in PowerPoint mode, so you just need to get into presentation mode. Yep, looks good.
All right. Thanks everyone for joining this talk today. So like I mentioned, I'm the National Database Manager for the National Soil Survey Center. I've worked for about 20 years in the soil survey program, all of it for the NRCS and several different roles. And I have a lot of background in the field and producing the soil survey products. And now I find myself on the other side, the public facing side, dealing with the databases and the applications and the tools for delivering this data. So I'm going to kick off this presentation with a discussion about SSURGO, our flagship product. Oh, it's the Soil Survey Geographic Database. I imagine many of you have heard that term before, so I'm going to give an overview of it and kind of dive into the data structure a little bit. Then I'm briefly going to talk about the tools for accessing SSURGO, and then I'm going to hand it off to Tammy Cheever to give a demonstration of Web Soil Survey. Then it's going to swing back to me, and I'm going to give an overview of some other tools for accessing SSURGO: Soil Data Access, Soil Data Viewer, the Microsoft Access Template, our new product, SSURGO Portal, and I'll touch on some of our SSURGO derivatives. When I'm done, we'll switch over to the EcoSites, and Shawn, Salley will discuss edit, and then I forget where Tiffany comes in with her presentation, and then Jay will talk about Lab Data Mart. That's our repository for all the soil sampling we've done over the last century or so, and how you can access that data. So getting started here on SSURGO, I'm going to introduce SSURGO. What is it? I'm going to talk a little bit about the history of the soil survey program, because we've been at this for a long time, and many of you may not realize how long the National Cooperative Soil Survey has been working on this. We'll talk about what data is in SSURGO and how it's organized, touch on how to access SSURGO before we get into the details of that later on. And then I also have to mention something called the annual soils refresh, just so everybody's aware about how we update our SSURGO product once a year. So what is SSURGO? Well, it's the official soils information for all areas of the United States and island territories at the highest level. So that's what the SSURGO product is. And this map here is a status map that I think Tammy will touch on. It's available on the Web Soil Survey application on the website. And you can see all the dark green there shows where we've completed the SSURGO mapping over the last century plus. So there's a lot of work that has been done across this country to produce SSURGO. The light green areas are the areas where we have a mixture of SSURGO and some incomplete areas, and the gray areas are where no SSURGO has been produced. We are still pushing very hard to fill in all those gaps. We tend to have we're down to that last 5–10%, which is the hardest to get. These are the more remote lands, typically wilderness areas, some national parks, some BLM lands, and a lot of remote areas up in Alaska, but we're trying to get it all filled in here. So SSURGO, it's something that it's a product that contains 125 years of data, 125 years of the official soil survey information going back to 1899. So we've been at this for well over a century. And as a result, it's really a multi-billion-dollar product. So I'm kind of estimating that number. I've heard this number estimated by some predecessors of mine. Essentially, there's a couple billion acres in the United States. The way I look at it is, what would it cost in today's dollars to produce this SSURGO product if we started from scratch? Would it be $1 an acre? Would it be $5 an acre, $10 an acre? It's hard to say. It would probably be in that $5 or $10 an acre range. So yeah, this would cost us billions of dollars if we had to start from scratch right now to produce the SSURGO product. And it's highly detailed. That's partly why it would cost so much money. We put a lot of boots on the ground to produce the SSURGO product over the last 125 years. I'm estimating here, but I don't think this is far-fetched by any means. It's based on millions, if not tens of millions of field observations. So when you look at the entire product, there's a lot of people visiting the sites and making observations out there. And as a result, we can produce a product that's typically at the 1 to 24,000 scale, which is pretty detailed. Now, sometimes people want to zoom in further and they wish it was a little bit more detailed, and we'd all love, sub-meter accuracy everywhere, but 1 to 24,000 product for the entire United States is pretty good. Now, certainly there's some variability there, and a lot of you work in national parks and national forests and BLMs lands, and unfortunately, those tend to be the lands where sometimes we're a little coarser and not at the 1 to 24,000 scale, but still really good products. The database is also very data rich. So there are hundreds of millions of records. We have a table in there with nearly 700 million records. It is just packed full of information about soil properties and interpretations. And it's also very high quality. And one of the reasons it's high quality is standards. In the National Cooperative Soil Survey, and specifically in the Soil and Plant Science Division, we love our standards and we lean heavily on them. We work very hard on the standards. We always have, at least in my 20 years that I've worked for the Soil Survey program. And we have things like the keys to soil taxonomy. Now we're on our 13th edition and moving towards the 14th edition, which is the system we use to classify soils. Just like the tree ponderosa pine is Pinus ponderosa, that's a genus species, we classify soils. So I think many of you are probably familiar with that because you have some familiarity with soils. We have the Soil Survey Manual, which guides us in our when we conduct our soil surveys. I think we're up to the 3rd edition of that, so we keep that up to date, and we've even started to incorporate our digital soil mapping techniques into the Soil Survey Manual. And then we have the handy field book for describing and sampling soils, which every soil scientist would use out in the field when they describe a soil pit. So we have consistency in how we collect our soil descriptions. Somebody in Alabama is doing it the same way as somebody up in Alaska. They're using the same book. And then internally, we have this thing called the National Soil Survey Handbook, which some of you may not be familiar with, but it's nearly 1,000 pages of guidance that, particularly in the Soil and Plant Science Division, we lean heavily on. It has all of our policies, all of our procedures, and it contains guidance for the specific soil properties and interpretations. It defines them, it explains how to populate them, provides guidance documents for populating them. So again, the person down in Alabama is doing the same thing up in Alaska. And we have laboratory manuals, which our national lab uses for processing, collecting soil samples and processing soils. And then many others that I don't have time to list here. So these standards really help produce a high quality product. In addition, we have rigorous quality control in our internal system. So it's kind of interesting, soil scientists are so interested in the quality of the product that often we tell ourselves it's not good because we find all the flaws in it. We're really good at finding the flaws. But when you zoom out and look at the level of effort we put into producing a high quality product, it's quite impressive. I mean, there are just so many scripts written in our internal databases to ensure quality of this product that it's quite well done. It's a very nice product when you zoom way out and look at it as a whole. We also have systematic correlation. So what am I talking about here? Talking about making sure that we don't have political boundaries introduce too many discrepancies. We really try to ensure that when we map a soil survey area, which is usually done at a county scale, so the soil survey area will be a county or a county-sized area. I'll explain a little bit more about that. We do those one at a time. And you can get a bit of a checkerboard approach over the decades where you're doing county A and the county B. But we want to make sure that the concepts of the soils flow across those counties, and we do our best to minimize the effect of political boundaries on the data and have data flow across those boundaries. We also have processes that are spelled out for constantly improving the product. So I showed that status map earlier. A lot of the country's done, but we still have offices out there and they have processes for identifying deficiencies and improving both the line work, the mapping, and also the tabular data, all the soil properties interpretations. And then this is one that I think is really important. One of the reasons I think it's such a high quality product is the tens of thousands of field soil scientists. Again, an estimate. I don't have the number of the amount of people that have contributed, but it's got to be up in that range, if not more. So these thousands of field soil scientists that really have a deep understanding of the soil survey process. In my 20 years of working for this agency, there doesn't seem to be a lot of turnover. I don't have the data, but I've been working with the same people for my entire career. People seem to come in and stick with the job. I imagine some of that was true in the past. It's probably true in a lot of your fields as well. I think a lot of the ecology fields, people really have a love of their work and they come to it and they stick with it and they get a deep understanding. And soil survey is complicated. So soil scientists really learn how to do it and do it well and produce really good products, especially when they're deep into their career. And they take a lot of pride in them, which produces a high quality product that is therefore very popular. So this here shows that it was queried, our SSURGO database, our national database, 125 million times last year. That is roughly 4 queries per second. So as I'm sitting here, our database is just getting pinged nonstop for data. Now, a lot of that is automated through web services, which I'll talk about, but nevertheless, people are just constantly hammering our database, and our system holds up, it delivers the data, and this number has only been going up over time in the popularity of the data. It's also accessible, which is why it's queried so much. So we've built out over the last particularly 20, 30 years, applications and tools that deliver the data in a way that is accessible despite this complexity of the SSURGO product. The SSURGO in its raw form is quite difficult to work with, but we have ways to simplify the access and give you easy access to the data. And lastly, it's integrated. So it's built into a lot of work routines, a lot of programs and tools. You might use it in some of your day-to-day work, or maybe on an ad hoc basis, but a lot of people lean heavily on the soil survey product. Tammy's going to talk about Web Soil Survey in a little while. That's our flagship customer interface where you can go in and make a map. We get 3.5 million users a year of that tool. A lot of people have the need for the soils data built into the work processes. And it's also built into policies at both local, county, state, and federal levels. Okay, on to the history of the soil survey. I have a couple slides here. So like I mentioned, we've been at this for 125 years, and I pulled some old pictures from the archive here showing some soil scientists doing work a long time ago. And I really like that one up in the upper right corner because when I look at that, I did some desert mapping. If you took that wagon and put a pickup truck there, a 2024 Chevy Silverado or something, it wouldn't really look that different. The soil scientists would probably look about the same today as it does 125 years ago, sitting out there with these tools, digging a hole, describing the soils, recording the information. So it's funny, a lot has changed, but some things really haven't changed. We have to dig the hole and describe the soil still to this day. And so the way we used to publish data prior to the digital age was historic paper manuscripts. So I mentioned soil survey areas. I'll mention this number quite a few times, but there's 3,373 soil survey areas in the United States. And we would map each one at a time, and we would publish a manuscript historically, a paper manuscript we'd produce thousands of these things and make them available to the public. And they contain things like handwritten narrative descriptions of the map units, tables of the soil properties and interpretations that were typed out, and then the maps in the back. These are hand-drawn polygons. So when you look at the SSURGO product, the majority of what you're dealing with in there is hand-drawn. A lot of it, for most of the SSURGO, was drawn on light tables in offices. Each one of those polygons was drawn probably numerous times. That's how we would copy them again and again to ensure that it had high quality. Even today, they're essentially hand-drawn. In a lot of cases, they're just done in GIS software with a mouse instead of with a pencil light table. So in the manuscript, we put the maps into the back of the manuscript. But we started to get smart. And, for the first 100 years, we delivered these manuscripts. Thousands of them, well over 3,000 at least, were published. But we transitioned to the digital world in the 1990s, and we created the SSURGO database. As everybody was transitioning into the digital world. And some of it started in the earlier than the 90s, but I don't have time to go into the details of all the steps of how we transitioned. And then in the early 2000s, we were able to develop this application called Web Soil Survey that many of you have probably been on there. And it actually kind of looks and feels the same as it did in the early 2000s, which is both a problem, but also a benefit because it shows us how well it was designed. It kind of just does what it does very well and continues to do it well, although it does need some updating, which we're working towards in the coming years. So I have this slide in here. I wasn't sure whether I was going to keep it or not. And I even had a few more slides about the whole soil survey process, but I took them. I decided to keep this one slide in here to illustrate what amount of data we might collect on a detailed 1 to 24,000 product. Now, again, I know many of you are in federal land, so the level of detail for some of those soil survey areas is just going to be less. A lot of times the lands aren't as accessible, as produced at a coarser scale, but if you're working in farmlands and you happen to deal with some of that data, again, I know this is a federal group, but some of you might still encounter that information. This will give you an idea of how much data might have gone in the product. So a general estimate, and this is just an estimate, be widely variable, but let's say you're a field soil scientist with a 35,000 annual mapping goal. So your project leader said, go out and map a USGS quad this year. That's your job. You might make something like 300 to 500 site observations on that quad. So that's not a full pit where you're sitting in a pit that's 5 or 6 feet deep describing the soil, but lots of quick little observations, auger holes, road cuts, lots of notes. And most were quick notes. But then maybe you did collect 20 or 30 or 40 full pet-on descriptions, big soil pits, backhoe pits. Some people have core trucks, lots of different ways to get this information. And then you might sample a couple of those, one or two. So when you look at the lab database that Jay is going to show later, that it contains the samples, the results of sampling, I think there's roughly 65,000 sites in there. That's just a snippet of the amount of information we collected. So it might look something like this on a quad. Now, again, it's going to be incredibly variable. And if you're in a wilderness area in a national forest, there's not going to be that many points. But a lot of our areas do have a lot of density of field site observations that went into producing the product. Boots on the ground, people walking, driving, traversing the landscape for a summer to collect all the data. All right, so let's take a look at under the hood a little bit of what's in the SSURGO database and how is it organized. So first, I just want to stratify it into two main data types. SSURGO has a spatial component, which is the soil polygons that show the location of the map units, aka the soil map. Those are the things that were in the back of the manuscript. The hand-drawn polygons I showed earlier were transitioned, digitized into these maps. That's the spatial data. But that just shows the geographic location of the data. There's not much else to the map. Frankly, I just want to pause here and say the map's the easy part. Drawing the map was the quickest and easiest thing. It's the tabular data where we put all of our time and effort into producing our product, because there's 68 tables with hundreds of millions of records full of soil properties such as bulk density, pH, soil texture, organic carbon, just to name a couple. There's many, many more than that, and interpretations of those soil properties. There's something like for example, we have suitability for roads. Is it good for roads? Is it bad for roads? We interpret that. We provide you that rating. What's the hydrologic soil group? That's the #1 requested interpretation on Web Soil Survey. Where are our drought vulnerable soils? We also have vegetative information. We have crop productivity. Again, probably not really necessary for this audience, but we do have information about that in there. What you guys might be particularly interested in is all the ecological classes we have. It's just a variety of ways of grouping our vegetative communities. We have forage suitability groups. We have the NRCS rangeland and forestland ecological sites, which are available on the EDIT database, but are connected to the soils in the SSURGO database. Shawn, Salley will be talking about EDIT later. And we have USFS plant associations. Often a soil in our database will be linked to both a plant association and an ecological site, an NRCS ecological site. We have a lot of USFS plant associations packed into our database. And we also have forest productivity. So a lot of our products have data about the trees that will grow on the soil and how well they will grow on the soil. And this is based on actual observations in the field. Did this as part of my career. We went out and cored the trees, measured the height, worked through the statistics and populated the data in the database and connected it to the soil types. And then we also have the classification information in the database. Is it a mollisol? Is it an andesol? Is it a cryant? Is it a fine silty mixed superactive mesic, typic RGs? All these funky terms that we have for classifying our soils are available in the database. And there's actually a lot of power in that terminology because there's definitions behind each one of those elements, those formative terms in the classification schema. So we definitely work very hard in making sure that data is correct. Moving into how it's organized through a slightly different lens, we're going to talk about tiers of data here. So SSURGO has a lot of one-to-many relationships, parent-child relationships. So you have one record related to many other records. And I'm going to talk about 4 major tiers in the database that hopefully will help you understand how the product is assembled, how the map units are assembled, how soils are put in map units, how horizons are put in soils. But first, we need to start at the soil survey area level. So I mentioned this before, that there are 3,373 county-size soil survey areas in the United States and island territories. And we map the soil survey area and publish the data one at a time. So that's how we historically have done it. We set a boundary, and then we produce the data for that area. This is a map showing the soil survey areas for the coterminous United States. Again, we have them for Alaska and the islands as well. And you can see if you look at the very center there where it says United States, that, and then go to, let your eyes drift to the east, you'll see that the soil survey area boundaries are nice and neat. They essentially match the county lines for most of that area because there's not a lot of federal lands and tribal lands in that part of the world. So we just use the counties. But when you go out to the west, the lines become irregular. And that's because we started to set up soil survey areas for national forest lands, BLM lands, park lands, tribal lands, and for other reasons. So they're a bit more irregular. To illustrate this a little bit further, here is a snippet from Washington State. So it's a little chaotic, but what you're looking at is the yellow lines are soil survey area boundaries. The black lines are the actual county lines. And all you need to note is that there's a discrepancy between the two. They do not align with each other. And the red area really illustrates that. That's the Gifford-Pinchot National Forest boundary, or at least that's the soil survey area for the Gifford-Pinchot. I assume it matches the actual National Soil Survey, the actual Forest Service boundary. And you can see that the Gifford-Pinchot crosses multiple counties. But we weren't going to map snippets of the Gifford-Pinchot one county at a time, so we set up a boundary for the Gifford-Pinchot. So now I'm going to switch to map units, and I'm going to use a survey area that I worked on, and I saw a colleague of mine that worked on it is on here too, Eric Choker. And so we both worked on this survey together a long time ago in Spokane County, Washington. And what you're looking at here with those colored polygons are the map units in a survey area. So the black line is the survey area, and at tier 2 are the map units. And there are as many map units in a single soil survey area. And I just want to note that we also have this thing called a legend. So every soil survey area has a single legend, and we use a legend to control the map units. So what that means is if you go to Web Soil Survey, you can find the soil survey area and then run the legend report, which is what I'm running here for Spokane County, and it'll list out all the map units. You'll get the symbol on the left of the hyphen, and on the right is the name of the map unit. And every survey area has many map units. So one soil survey area, many map units. Now, there's a lot more in Spokane County than what you're even seeing here, but I'm actually just going to focus on this one and try and break it apart a little bit so you guys understand the map unit concept. So we're going to pick this map unit 3114, Rockley 4-Mount Complex, 0 to 15% slopes. And we're going to break it down a little bit. So a map unit is a collection of separated polygons. So each polygon you see in that image on the right is not a map unit, but rather a map unit is a bunch of polygons that are separated from each other. If I highlight the extent of Rockley 4-Mount here, 314, all those that red stuff pops up. Those are all red polygons that are not connected to each other. And each one is the same map unit, the same data, the same soils occur again and again. And we can do that because they represent repeating landforms. Landforms repeat on the Earth's surface, therefore the soils repeat on the Earth's surface, and we can delineate those things and draw those repeating patterns out. So here is an aerial image of 3114, and each one of those delineations is going to give you the same data when you analyze our database because the landform's the same, therefore the soils are the same. So now we're going to move below map units and talk about what's in a map unit. We have one soil survey area, many map units in the soil survey area. Now we're going to talk about components, and there are many components in every map unit. Occasionally there'll be a map unit with one component, but typically there's many components in every map unit. And the components are essentially soils. So if you hear the term components in your head, think soils. So components also include things. The reason we use components is they include things that are not soils as well, such as I call them non-physical bodies, such as water, rock outcrop, dune land, river, rubble land, glacier, those sorts of things. So we had to use a different term, the soils, so we use components, but typically they're soils. And you can also have a major component in a map unit that comprises the majority of it. And then we have things called inclusions or minor components that we know are out there, but there's not a lot of it. So we give them a low percentage in the map unit and call them minor. So looking at 3114 here, we have two major components in there. We have the Rockley component, and we have the 4-Mount component. And they're unique soils, and they occur in this map unit, and they're expected to be in every delineation of 3114. And you can actually see this map unit, and this is why I chose this one. So Spokane County had the Missoula floods come through in about 13,000 years ago. So if you're not familiar with the floods, giant lake burst, a lake was behind a glacier, it burst, washed away all the soil in Spokane County and many other parts of Washington State, and left bare basalt bedrock behind. And then since that time, these mounds formed out there. Sometimes they're called Memetat mounds, biscuit scabland. There's other names for this as well. those little mounds are 40 inches of soil, and that is the 4-mound soil. Everybody can see it right there. You don't need to be a soil scientist to pick this pattern out. And then the inner mound area is about 3 inches of soil, which also tells you about how long it takes to make soil. 13,000 years, not much soil had formed. And those are the Rockley components. You can also get why we wouldn't group 4-mound of Rockley together in the polygon here. We can't break those apart at a 1 to 24,000 scale. We couldn't break those apart on a 10-meter grid. They're just too intertwined with each other. So we had to make what's called a complex and put them together in the map unit. These are actually all the components in the map unit, because remember I mentioned majors. So there's our Rockley and 4-mound. Those are our major components. That's actually indicated in the database. We have a column that tells you whether it's major or minor. And that's the percentage of the map unit they comprise. So to make up 80% of it, that is also in the database. And because they're major, they show up in the name. So when you see the name of the map unit and you see soil names or component names, that means they're the major components. But we have these other things that are minors that we know are out there from our field investigations, all those boots on the ground, site observations, and we were able to add that to the map unit concept and put it into the database. Most people are interested in the majors. All right, last here. So we have one soil survey area, many map units, many components in each map unit, and now we have many horizons in each component. And we describe our soils vertically from a depth of 0 to 200 centimeters, and we break out distinct horizons in the soils. And each horizon has unique chemical and physical properties. This is a diagram that shows you an illustration that shows you that. And this is a real life image of a soil profile that you don't need to be a trained soil scientist to break out the horizons there. It's pretty clear where there's some breaks, and each one of those horizons is going to have different properties. We describe each one. Sometimes we sample them, and then we put the data into our database. So all that is this, I said all that partly to illustrate the complexity of the database, which sets us up for the tools that we use to cut through the complexity. It's very difficult to extract meaningful data out of numerous one-to-many relationships in the database without some tools and other things to help support you. And so we do two main things here to support you. First, we interpret the data. So we've spent a lot of time writing algorithms, writing scripts to cut through all those one-to-many relationships, analyze those soil properties and other information in the database, and produce results like suitability for roads. And we also provide tools to let you aggregate the data how you want. So if you want to work in Spokane County or your national forest or the state or the region you're in, and you want an organic carbon map or a clay map or a pH map, we have tools that will cut through all that noise of the one-to-many relationships and produce singular values at the map unit level using aggregation. Okay, so how do you access SSURGO? This is what you guys are probably really interested in. So I'm going to get through this pretty quick and turn it over to Tammy here. First is Web Soil Survey. Tammy's going to play a recording here of a live demo of Web Soil Survey. So I'm not going to talk too much about that. Many of you have probably already been there. Then it's going to swing back to me to talk about Soil Data Access. This is the other major application for accessing the SSURGO data. And I'll explain that in detail a little later on. And then we also have a portable product called SSURGO Downloads and SSURGO Tools. So we have this thing that these databases you can and data sets you can get onto your machine locally and work with the official data. Diagramming this a little bit before I turn over to Tammy, I think this helps illustrate what's going on a little bit better. We have a database on a server, a SQL 2018 SQL Server database that's stored on a secure USDA server. That is our official data. It actually is named Soil Data Mart, and I mention this because you might see reference to it on some of our web pages. If you ever encounter Soil Data Mart, just think SSURGO in your head. It's essentially the same thing. And that's the national database that has all the data packed into it for the entire country and island territories. And Web Soil Survey is connected to it. That's how, when you go to Web Soil Survey and make a map, you're looking at data in that database. And so is Soil Data Access. So when you learn about Soil Data Access, or if you already use Soil Data Access, you get the same data as you do from Web Soil Survey. Now, I mentioned those SSURGO derivatives. And so what is that? Well, we extract out a bunch of data for the soil survey areas from Soil Data Mart once a year when we do the annual soils refresh, which I'll talk about in a minute. And we create data packages. So there's 3,373 data packages, one for each soil survey area. It's available on Web Soil Survey for download. So you can go there and download these things. That's kind of the third way to get at the data, get the portable data. All right, a quick slide on the annual soils refresh, then over to Tammy. So what is this annual soils refresh? Well, we use the acronym ASR here, and so you may hear Tammy refer to that. What this is it's the annual process when we update our official soil survey information. So throughout the year, we're updating the database and we're producing new data. We used to just release those changes ad hoc, whatever we want, but it was starting to introduce instability to our customers who are using our data. So we've decided that on October 1st of every year, we will refresh the database. All the changes get pushed out once a year. So it refreshes all the data that I just showed, all the data in that database that is accessible by Web Soil Survey, Soil Data Access, and the SSURGO downloads. All the soil survey areas are updated, and again, it occurs on October 1st of every year. We haven't missed that deadline in many years. So we'll talk a little bit more about this later, but just know that we have this process for updating the data. Okay, Tammy, I'm going to stop sharing. Over to you, and it's for whoever's going to hit play on the recording for Web Soil Survey.
Tammy, do you want to give us a quick intro while I get the video queued up?
Sure, I'd love to. Let me get my video. Well, it's not going to start for me here. Anyway, this is a pre-recorded video I did, trying to make sure that if we ran into any network issues, we weren't prevented from doing this presentation. I go through it rather quickly. I'll be happy to do questions and answers after when we get to that point in this presentation. But with that, go ahead and kick off this recording. This is an overview of Web Soil Survey. We'll begin by opening a browser and doing a search for Web Soil Survey. We'll open the main homepage. On this homepage, you've got the big Start WSS button. And on the right-hand side, you've got I want to, announcements and events, and I want help with. Suggest starting with the I want help with. The Getting Started with Web Soil Survey is a PDF document that the Soils Hotline routinely sends out to new customers to help them get started. A lot of what I'm covering today is going to be in that document. You also have the known problems and workarounds and the frequently asked questions, and then how to cite Web Soil Survey as a source of data. Up here under announcements and events, we have release history that you can look at to see what was updated in a particular version of Web Soil Survey. And right beneath that, there's the sign up for email updates via Gov Delivery. I strongly suggest that if you're interested in soil data and Web Soil Survey, you go ahead and sign up for that. You'll get email updates once in a while. You'll get an email update at the annual soil refresh, which happens about October 1st of every year. And then if we have any out of cycle updates, we'll send a notice via Gov Delivery as well, or if there's a new version of Web Soil Survey going to be released. Of that, we have the I want to section, talks about the requirements for running Web Soil Survey, hours of operation. You can find out what areas of the U.S. have soil data. I'll go ahead and click on that, show you the soil data map. It tells you that this dark green areas got tabular spatial data, the date this status map was updated. So I'll return back to this homepage. It tells you how to hyperlink documents from other documents to Web Soil Survey. And then this the SSURGO data structure, that's the metadata for the underlying soil database that Web Soil Survey pulls its information from. That's where you're going to find the data model, the tables and columns report, and the attributes for each of those. So we'll hit return here. Let's go ahead and start the application by clicking on the Start WSS button. Let me widen my window a little bit here. You can see that the Web Soil Survey main page has a unique URL different from the application page. You can bookmark both of those. And if you don't want to look at the helpful information in the beginning, you can go directly into this application. So I've already been in here, so I'm going to clear out a couple of things and then start telling you that there's this menu bar at the top. There's the contact us. I'll talk about that a little bit later. Archive soil surveys, those are the digitally scanned old printed soil survey manuscripts. We have those all online. This soil survey status, again, that's the status map. You can get it in a PDF document, a JPEG, or the shapefile. We have a glossary, some preferences that you can set for your web soil survey interface. If you don't like these colors, you can change them there. I'll come back to link in a little bit. And then let's go ahead and look down here. We have these tabs: the area of interest, soil map, soil data explorer, download soils data, and shopping cart. And you can see that these are grayed out. The only one that's available right now is the download soils data. The other tabs will not become active until you set an area of interest or an AOI. So let's skip right down to let's download some soils data. If you have an application, and let me collapse this back again. If you have an application such as ArcGIS that you want to use the spatial and tabular data in, you can come to the soils data tab, click the soil survey SSURGO soil survey area for SSURGO, and then you'll get this page. And this is defaulted to Alabama, and you can see that for Alabama, we have a list of soil survey area names, the area symbols, the data availability, the versions that are available, and the access template that it's using. In this case, most of the states just use the US template. Some do have a customized template, and they'll have, instead of the US, it'll have their 2-letter state abbreviation. We do tell you the download size, so you know how big of a file you're downloading. And then here's your active link. You can click and download the zip file. When you unzip it, you will have a folder for spatial data, you'll have a tabular folder, and then you'll have the access template as well. If you want to know if we've updated any data out of the annual refresh cycle, you can use this calendar. I'm going to change it back to all states and territories. And then I'll click on the calendar, and I want to know any data that's been updated since the last annual refresh, which was on October 1st. So I'm going to select October 2nd and just click on it. The system will go out and find the areas that have been updated since that refresh time. And in this case, we only have one that we've done this year. So I'm going to go back to the area of interest tab. And if you want to run reports or interpretations or properties for data, you're going to need to set an area of interest. We have this row of icons here, and this first one is a zoom in and then zoom out, the pan icon. If I have the default set to zoom in, I can click on the map, zoom in a first level. I can click in, zoom again, or I can click and drag on the map to zoom in. I've not set an area of interest yet. I'm just navigating to an area on the map. I have this scale button that I can pull up, and you literally want to take your, it explains here, take your measuring tool and measure 1 inch and then click OK, and it will set the scale appropriately. This pan icon is to click and drag the map if you want to adjust it a little bit. You can zoom back out with the just clicking on the map again. I'll cover this identify tool a little bit later. Let's go back over. Well, no, let's go ahead and do this AOI icons or AOI tools over here. AOI rectangle, AOI polygon, you can use to set your area of interest. I'm going to zoom in a bit further. And then I can use the AOI icon, click it, and then just click and drag to draw a rectangle to set your area of interest. If it's larger than 100,000 acres, it's going to give you this big red warning. Just click close and set a much smaller, set a much smaller area of interest. Anything you do from now on with your area of interest set is only going to run against the data that's within this blue hashtag boundary layer that you see here. If I want to clear my AOI, I just come to the left and hit clear AOI. If I want to use the AOI polygon tool, select it, click once for your first point, click again, and just click around until you've got your boundary outlined. You double click to close it. And that's going to set that irregular AY area. You can see on the left-hand side, once you have that blue boundary marked, you can see you have the number of acres you have in your area of interest. You can see the survey area name and the symbol, the versions that they were created. So let's clear that once again. And this time we're going to use this import AOI tool. We can click on create AOI from shapefile. You click choose file. And in my case, I have my files over here. I'm going to do my shapefile first. And then I'll choose the SHX file and just double click it. You can see it's putting the file name there. And the DBF is optional, so I'm just going to go ahead and click Set AOI. And now you can see that with my shapefile files already, I can just import the area of interest already. Now, if I wanted to, say I've used this AOI tool, polygon tool, and I've, gone to the trouble to outline a particular piece of property, and it's taking me some time to do that, or if I just have this rectangle one and I want to, maybe I'm having problems and I want to tell the soils hotline, this is the area of interest that I'm using and I'm having problems, or you want to share it with a customer, or whoever you want to share it with, you can click on link, and then you just highlight this URL, and you would do a Control-C to copy it, and then you can paste it in to your browser and save it as a bookmark. You could email it to somebody. So I will just close that for now. But that's a way that somebody can come in and use the exact same area of interest right down to the number of acres that you've already gone to the trouble of setting up. So on the, I'm going to clear my AOI again. And then on this import AOI, I don't know if you noticed that there was a question mark icon. We have those throughout Web Soil Survey, and those are our online help. So if you're having problems importing an AOI, in this import AOI area, click that question mark, and it's going to bring up online help. And the thing we always recommend is that you come to the bottom, and there's this note that not all shapefiles can be imported for use as an AOI. And we have a number of cases of why your AOI may not be importing, and that's where you would find that information, so you could go check your shapefile. Click the upside down question mark to close that. Click on the items here just to collapse them. And then let's skip down to this quick navigation method. I'm actually going to start from the bottom up. You could, if you know your hydrologic unit number, you could put that in there and click view. We have boundary layers for Park Service. You just open it up, and then you would say view, and that will show you the boundary layer. It's not setting an area of interest. It's just showing you the boundary of this particular national park. We also have boundary layers for Forest Service and Department of Defense. And again, you just click the boxes and then click view. And we have some for Bureau of Land Management. Again, you would click view. And I'm going to change this to a smaller park or BLM land. And it's kind of, you can see it's very hard to see your, in this case, they don't use color for the boundary. They use a line to outline it, and it's kind of hard to see. But you can come to legend up here, and you click and drag down, and you can right click on aerial photography and go to edit layer properties, and then you can change the opacity of it by just dragging down on that slider bar and then click OK, and that will lighten that aerial photography so that you can more clearly see the boundary line there. We'll go put that back. Just right click and put it back over there. And for now, I'm going to close the legend. You can also go to PLSS section township and range. You choose your state. You have the option, if there's multiple principal meridians, you can choose those, and then you put your section township and range and click view. You can also do lat long, and again, here's that question mark that's very helpful because it's going to tell you what formats that we accept for the lat long to be inputted into. So I'll close that. You can do soil survey area. This is the only place that you can set an area of interest greater than 100,000 acres. These tools up here in the import, you're limited to 100,000 acres. So this is simply choose your state, and then you can choose your county as optional. If you choose a county, it will show you any survey areas. In this case, there's only one, but it would show you if there was more than one survey area that crossed into that county boundary. So once you have that set, you would select, click on the radio button, and then you click the Set AOI button. This is going to set the entire soil survey area as your area of interest. And you can see that it's well over the 100,000 acres here. I'm going to clear that once more. And then I want to show you the address. You can view your address by putting a zip code. You could put in city and state. In the zip code, you can put in a whole street address, and it will give you an option. You can just zoom to that level. Now, we haven't set an area of interest in this case. It's simply navigating to Lincoln, not Lincoln New. I'm surprised it found that. Lincoln, Nebraska. I guess it found it because of the zip code. So you can also, we're just going to draw an area of interest here. I've just created a small one. I want to show this legend again. When you come to legend, well, no, let me go to the soil map. I'm going to click on the soil map. Then now that I have my area of interest set, I can click on the legend, and then I could right click on these soil map unit polygons and click edit layer. And here I can choose to show the soil labels, or I can turn them on or off. I can make them larger. I can change the boundary. Maybe I want it to be 2, and instead of 1, I want that line big and thick. I can change the count colors slightly. I can't make them purple, but I can change them from this dark orange to lighter orange. I can change the opacity of that. If I make that line really, really wide, I would want to change the opacity, kind of see through it. So I'm going to put this back to the reset, using the reset button. I can come down to, again, I might want to have both the topo map and the aerial photography on, and with both of them on, I see the topo map. But if I want to right click on the aerial photography, go to edit layer, I can lighten that up a bit, click apply, click OK. I'm going to turn that topo map off and turn it back on. And let me right click and edit those layer properties. I'm going to make the topo map lighter. And you can see how you can play with this a little bit to get it to look and suit your needs. And that you can adjust so that you have the aerial imagery showing a bit, the topo map showing a bit. In this case, I'm going to put them both back to their default. But check out the legend, check out whether or not you can edit different layer properties. I think it's helpful. And somehow I managed to not turn that off. Okay. Sorry, it's late in the day and I'm starting to fade a little here. All right, now we have the topo layer off. Again, still on the soil map, you can click on the map unit name and you can actually get a map unit description report. You could do printable version right from here. I'm going to skip that for now. Another thing you can do is go to the Soil Data Explorer tab, and it's going to bring up another set of tabs. We've got suitabilities and limitations for use. You can click the open all to expand all of these options, or you can click close all and just click on one option at a time to see the things beneath it that you could run. So I could, let's see, let's do building site development, corrosion of steel. We've got options here that you can set. I'm just going to leave the default and say view rating. And it's going to give me a map that shows this colorized map. And then beneath it is got your table that tells you a bit about what this map is showing you. And there's a description of this. And then the aggregation methods that were used to generate it. Now I could create a printable version. Got options for custom subtitle. You can change your map scale here. You can change the printed size of the sheet that you're using. I'll just click the default and I'll say view. That's going to create this one thing in a single PDF. Versus if I add it to the shopping cart, and let me let this finish here. You can see you've got a single PDF that you could download or print right there. So I'm going to go back over here. That printable version is a single PDF. I could add it to the shopping cart. I could go run say another soil report by clicking on the soil reports tab, and then I could select something like soil erosion, wind breaks, and do a view soil report. And then I could add that same report, I could add it to the shopping cart. We suggest, I'm not going to do a subtitle, but we suggest that you don't add more than 10 items to any single shopping cart. And we will go to the shopping cart when I get done talking about some more stuff here. But that's the difference between printable version and shopping cart. Here we have ecological sites. You can click on the view all ecological sites info. And then you'll see based on the area of interest that I have set, beneath it, you've got your table and there's some hot links here. And this is going to take you to an application called Edit. Shawn Salley is going to talk more about Edit, so I won't go into the details of about that, but you can see that we have a connection between Web Soil Survey and Edit. So I'll come back here, and you've got soil properties and qualities that you can run. Again, it's the same structure. You can just open all. This is where you would find K factor, soil health information, chemical properties, soil physical properties as your clay, sand, percents here, AASHTO. Oh, I forgot one thing. Back here on Area of Interest tab, you can click search and say I don't know where I want to go on my tabs, but I do know a keyword, and I want to know about hydric. Where does Web Soil Survey know anything about hydric? So I click on search, type in my keyword, and then below here it tells me there's 15 matches. Under suitabilities and limitations for use, we have a folder description that matches for hydric, and that's your land classification. You can see where there's one match each. And under soil reports, we have land classifications, hydric soils. Just click on that. That takes you to that tab. And then here's our hydric soils. We could do view soil report. Again, we can add that to the shopping cart. I'll just take the default and say okay. And now we can go ahead and go to our shopping cart. Click on it. It says free. It doesn't cost anything. I'm going to scrunch this search option down here and show you that on the left-hand side, we have some map unit options. We can change the scale here. We can change that sheet size based on our printer. And then this table of contents, the things that are grayed out, you don't have an option to change. But maybe you ran a soil report and you decided that you really didn't need it, you could just uncheck it. Or maybe you don't need the references, you could uncheck it. We'll uncheck both of these. And then when you've got your table of contents correct, you can come up here, you can do the checkout. And then you have two options. You can get now, or you can download it later. If the system's busy and you try to get now, it may tell you that, hey, the system's too busy. Put in your email address and you put that in and then you say, okay. I'm going to go back to the, so you put in your email address, you click OK, it's going to, well, we'll just demo it here. I'll click OK. It's going to give you this order ID number. You might want to make note of that in case you have a problem getting an order. It says that it should be completed within 24 hours. If not, you can contact the soils hotline and you just click close. If I wanted to, I could have done the checkout and get now. In that case, I just say okay. It's going to create a PDF, single PDF with multiple things in it. The multiple things are whatever you added to your shopping cart, and that's what we said, limited to 10 or less. So you get a nice cover sheet. You get your preface of what this thing is, your contents, how soil surveys are made. It tells you just a little bit about that, and then your soil map and your legend and the tables, and then all of your reports and the items that you added. Now you can save it, you can print it, whatever suits you. Let's see, what else have I not covered? I think that's it. So I will stop the recording now and you're free to ask questions. If there's anything I have not covered you want to have to, oh, I do have one thing. Contact us. Remember I said I would come back to it. Once you set your area of interest, when you click on the contact us, it not only gives you the soils hotline address if you need help, but it has links to the state office, NRCS state office. It has links to the local office, and it also has the link and the address and the phone number for the area of interest you have set. Gives you the specific local NRCS office that you would want to contact. Soils hotline will help with issues with the application, how to use it, how to navigate. If you have questions specific to soil data in a particular state or local area, you would want to contact those offices. All right, I think I've covered everything, so I'll stop the recording and you can ask questions. Thank you.
All right, keep the questions coming in the chat, and I'll hand it back to Kyle, who will continue with his presentation.
Thanks, Cory. Okay, after that overview of Web Soil Survey, we're going to go to a companion application called Soil Data Access. Many of you are probably familiar with Web Soil Survey. Some of you might not be familiar with Soil Data Access, so this might be new information. So Soil Data Access is very different in Web Soil Survey from Web Soil Survey in that it's not really a user interface. It's rather a set of instructions for mainly for using web services. There's a little bit of a UI piece, but for this overview, I'm not going to do a live demo because there's not even a user interface really. Rather, I'm going to just be referencing this index here, this menu of links, and try and explain highlight some of these that will steer you to different sections of the web page and give you the information you need to use the Soil Data Access web services if you're interested. So again, it's a companion to Web Soil Survey. Earlier, I showed a diagram that showed a SQL Server database and said Web Soil Survey is connected to that database. So is Soil Data Access. So it's going to the exact same data source as Web Soil Survey. You can click that link down there on the bottom right that I have highlighted, and you will be able to read all about the web this application. I highly recommend it if you're interested. Ultimately, it's really a suite of web services. That's the main thing this application does. It's got configured web services. Try and explain a little bit more about that to folks in case you're not familiar with what web services are and what they do. The high-level goal of these web services is to support soil data requests that are not available on Web Soil Survey, and also to allow you to stream data back into your system. Just like you stream Netflix into your house, you can stream the soil data into your software, into your tool, into whatever you're doing, whatever you need to bring the soil data into. So it's a little bit more for advanced users or developers, but we certainly know people like it. And I imagine there's at least some percentage of the people watching this that would be interested in these web services. In addition to the web services, it contains a web page. This is the UI piece, and I'll demonstrate this or show some screenshots of this in a minute. It contains a web page that allows you to write a simple SQL query and receive an instant result. It's a little different than the web services that stream data back in. Really, Soil Data Access seems to be typically used by people that have some knowledge of the soils database schema or are comfortable reading the metadata documents, which really aren't that bad to read. They explain the tables and the columns in the database. So then they could write some simple SQL queries or even complex SQL queries. And then, of course, it would be helpful to have knowledge of web services if you want to use web services, although you could learn. For sure, there's enough information on here to teach anybody how to use these products. So first, I'm going to start with this queries, the web page queries. This is the UI piece of the application. You would click this link up here that I've highlighted. It says submit a custom request for soil tabular data. And I am going to pause right here because, Cory, I forgot to reference my links document. So did you, I'm going to put you on the spot here, Cory. Did you put that into the chat by chance? Okay.
It has been going, yep.
All right, great. So there's a Word document in the chat that has links to Web Soil Survey, and then it's going to have links to Soil Data Access and some other tools I'm going to reference here. So if you're following along and are interested, that you can get the Soil Data Access very quickly via that document. Sorry, back to the presentation. Okay, so here you can click this link in Soil Data Access, and it'll pop up a window where there's a little white dialog box where you can write a SQL query. It can be simple SQL queries or complex SQL queries, and you can return data from that database. And you can get a table that instantly pops up with the results, and then you can do whatever you want with that data. You could join it to the spatial data and GIS software, work with it however you may want. You can also get query results emailed to you if they're too large. I believe the immediate results are limited to 10,000 rows, so anything that is over 10,000 rows, you have to queue it up and have it emailed to you. But you can get large amounts of data returned to you. I think you can query the entirety of the database, even have it returned to you. So again, it allows for unique data requests that you can't get through Web Soil Survey. And that's why a lot of people use this. So a hypothetical example, I mentioned earlier, I'm in Portland, Oregon. So we have serpentine geology out here. I've had this request several times over the years. People will come and say, hey, how do I find all the soils that were derived from serpentine in the state of Oregon? Well, Web Soil Survey is not equipped to meet that type of request. You could do it. It would be painful and require a lot of manual effort. But I am able to write that query with 7 lines of code here. Now, I'm not expecting everybody to know how to pull that data out necessarily, but just rather that you know that you can do it, and you can contact the hotline anytime. So if you're thinking, I need information for my area, maybe somebody on the hotline can help me, send us an email. We might be able to write a query in minutes. I mean, it took me less than a minute, I think, to write this query, and it returned the results of all the map units in the state of Oregon that have a soil that was derived from serpentine, and I can join that to the spatial layer very quickly in GIS. So really, you could have that result in 5-10 minutes. If you know how to write the query. And again, if you don't know how to pull the data out of the database, let us know. Maybe we can help you. Sometimes the requests can be complicated and it's not so easy to help, but often we're able to give people what they need pretty quickly. So please don't hesitate to email the soils hotline when you want custom data requests. Now, the web services are a little different. They're a little more complicated than the web page queries. There's no user interface. They're a little more for advanced users, developers, or just very technically savvy people that are interested in this sort of thing. And they allow customers to submit queries to that database via a URL, a web address. And then the data results are streamed back into their system. What Soil Data Access does for web services is it provides instructions. So you click that link, I highlight it, and there it lists out the 6 different configured web services that we have. And those are the base URL you need to format a web service. And then it lists all the other information, all the other pieces you would need to add to it to properly configure a request through a web service, a query to the database. There's spatial ones down there at the bottom. The last 2 that the last 4 are spatial queries that return the map. And then we also have ones that just give you tabular results. In addition, Tammy had mentioned some metadata documents. We have references to the metadata documents as well on the Soil Data Access. If you're going to query a database that's complex, you probably should be able to see what's in the database, what tables are in the database, what columns are in the database. So you can come here and click this link, and you get a bunch of PDF documents presented to you that detail the structure of the database. One of the most popular ones is this table and columns report. You click on that, it's going to show you the name of every table, the name of every column. It's going to define the table, it's going to define the columns, going to give you the data types, and you can use that to then build your queries. There's also reports that show the relationships amongst the tables, which can be quite helpful, how they're interrelated with each other. There's other information in here too that will help you construct a query. Okay, so I talked about web services. I'm not going to go any further here. So you'll see in a second, I'll just point you to the Soil Data Access webpage, and you should read about it. So if this is something that piques your interest, all the information is on the webpage. But for those of you that don't really have a concept of a web service, and I was one of those people just a couple of years ago, here's an example of one. This is a web map service query. Note in the upper left of the blue underline, you'll see HTTPS. It's a website, essentially. It's a request through the internet. And there's a lot going on here, but you can pick something out that maybe makes sense to you. Those are coordinates there embedded into the query. And that BB box or a BBOX is bounding box. And so it's setting the area of interest, where you want to return the data for. And when I could actually run this link live and it will return this result, returns the soil map. Then you get to do what you want with that. You can present it in a web page, or you can integrate it however you need to integrate it into your system. But that's an example of a web map service. So you have to manually construct that URL request based on the instructions on the web page, and then you can start to get data return. But this is really popular. I mentioned before we had 125 million data requests from our database last year. The vast majority of those are coming through these services into the database. People have set up automated processes, and they're just pinging our database constantly. Again, this has just been an overview, so I recommend you take the time to read through the webpage for detailed instructions. Okay, we're going to shift gears here now. Talked about web soil survey, and we've talked about soil data access. That is on the left side of this diagram here. Those are the network connected applications where you have to have a network connection to work with the soils data. But we have this other side of the diagram where we have portable data packages that, yes, you do need a network connection to acquire them, but once you acquire them, you technically don't need to be connected to the network. They'll live on your C drive, your D drive, your external drives, your servers, whatever, and they're local. And what that does is that gives you the ability to work with much larger data sets without any possible restrictions of, there's no constriction introduced that could be introduced through network. We all have problems with the network not working. You have limitations on the size of the data you can get through web soil survey and soil data access. It's kind of open-ended with the downloadable data. You can have it all if you want to, and work with large databases over large areas. So that's where the remainder of my talk will be spent, is on the disconnected side. So we're going to talk about SSURGO downloads. I'm sorry, I got to click something here that you guys can't see that popped up for Zoom. Okay, so we're going to talk about SSURGO downloads. These are available for download at Web Soil Survey. I think this was shown several times. I think Tammy showed it in her talk, but I had stepped away for a moment, so I might have missed it. But you can go on there, you can search for them different ways, and you get a zip file presented to you for each soil survey area, and then you can download the data. So they're available for all 3,373 soil survey area packages. Now, I do want to note that on Web Soil Survey, you got to do this one at a time. So if you wanted all the SSURGO, you'd have to click 3,373 zip files links and download each one. Obviously, nobody wants to do that. I will reference some new development we've done. We have some GIS tools that are available for batch downloading the data to quickly download many of these. And that might pique some people's interest if you wanted to make a map for this, a product for the state of Colorado or part of Colorado. You can get lots of survey areas at once very quickly now. So again, we have a SSURGO available for all these soil survey areas. That's all this map is showing you here, is that we have a bunch of soil survey areas, and you can download the SSURGO for each one individually. When you download it, and unzip it, you're going to get a folder in there with the area symbol. Remember, I've been working in Spokane County, Washington. That is the symbol WA063. When you open that folder, you're going to see the standard SSURGO download schema. This will be the same for everything you download from Web Soil Survey. And what you're really interested in is this tabular folder that has 68 files of soil properties and interpretation, vegetative information, classification information. So it's jam-packed with information. That is what you're interested in. That's the data, the payload data. But there's also the spatial data, the map, and these come as shape files, the 6 shape files. So you might be wondering, why are there 6 shape files? I don't have time to explain why they're all in there, but just know that you really only need 2 of them. This is the one, the soil MU_A, that at the top of the list. That's the map unit polygons. That's what most people are interested in. And the other one you may want is the boundary area for the soil survey area boundary. The others typically are not required, or you're not interested in them. Someday we may drop those. So again, it's not very useful. SSURGO is not very useful in the raw form. It's too complicated. I don't like working with it in its raw form. I want it in a database. I want to be able to query the database. I want to have tools that cut through all the tables and produce results at the map unit level. So what we did was we built tools to help you. A template database we have template databases that can import the tabular data into it and put it in a relational database, connect tables together. And then we have an aggregation engine out there in the several flavors of this that will simplify the analysis. And then we also are able to produce thematic map outputs and take a lot of the process steps off your plate. So what are these tools for working with SSURGO downloads? Well, the first one is the Microsoft SSURGO Access template. It's about 20 plus years old. I'll talk a little bit more about that. And then there's the Soil Data Viewer companion tool that works with the template. And that's also about 20 years old. Both of these still work. And then we have this other thing that we've been working on that you might not be aware of. And maybe this is the main thing you take out of the talk about the soils data. And that is SSURGO Portal. We have a beta version of this that has been released. So these are old, but they still work. They're on the clock, and particularly Soil Data Viewer, which I'll explain why, but they do still work. This is the future. Now, it's a beta release. We're improving it. We hope to have a new release in early 2025 with a lot more bells and whistles, but this is where we want to go, and it's ultimately going to replace the first 2 items. All right, let's talk about the template. Again, it's out there at Worksheet. It's typically included in your download from Web Soil Survey, and it allows importing of the tabular data. No spatial data, but allows importing of the tabular data into the predefined tables. So you download SSURGO, get the template, open it, point at the tabular data, and then it loads data into all these predefined tables. They're built to accept the SSURGO data, and all the relationships are connected and created between the tables. There's 68 tables. They are interrelated with numerous one-to-many relationships. It is complicated. You don't want to deal with it. We did the work for you. But those relationships being built allow you to submit queries then to the, if you want to, and also allows us to easily produce pre-formatted reports. So that's something that you can do in this database. You can go in there and run a chemical soils property report. Now note that these reports are not the results you want to join to the spatial layer. They just present all the information for all the soils and all the horizons that are in the database. So they can't really be used to make thematic maps. So there's no aggregation in here. There's no analysis, just a table of data that can't be joined to the spatial. To make the maps, we have Soil Data Viewer, and this is also the aggregation engine. So it's often not widely acknowledged, but that's the real power of Soil Data Viewer. Is it's got a bunch of code in it that will cut through all these tables and all these relationships and allow you to produce a single result. Here's available water storage for the map, all the map units, the average available water storage, and then you can make a thematic map from it. So that aggregation engine is extremely important. That's really what the back end of Soil Data Viewer is. Thematic map is awesome. We love having that as the output, but just backing up here a second, it's that data that you need first and foremost, and that's the important piece, and that's what Soil Data Viewer really does. And then it's also able to make a thematic map on top of that. We have limitations with these two tools, though. The Microsoft Access template, it requires a Microsoft license. We don't want our customers to have to use licenses. Not a problem for this audience, but we work with a lot of people that are not federal employees, that, you know, the small operations. We just want our data to be accessible by everybody. So we're trying to move away from delivering products that require licenses. It also is very limited in scale, can't exceed 2 gigabytes, and it doesn't store the spatial data and does not work in ArcGIS Pro. Soil Data Viewer also has problems. It requires the expensive Esri license to use it. It only works in ArcGIS Desktop as well. So it doesn't work in Arc Pro. It's not going to, the current version of Soil Data Viewer will not work in Pro. So if you don't have ArcGIS Desktop any longer, you can't use Soil Data Viewer. It's also very limited in scale. It can't work with more than 2 gigabytes of data. When I mentioned the 2 gigabyte limitation, what that means in practical terms is I couldn't use the Microsoft Access template and Soil Data Viewer to make maps for the state of Oregon where I'm located. It would be too much data. Maybe a half the state or a third of the state, but not the entire state. And it's 2024. We should be able to work with products and give you guys products that you can make databases over large areas. All right, on to SSURGO Portal Beta. This is the eventual replacement for the template and Soil Data Viewer, as I mentioned. That's where we're headed. So what is this thing? Well, it's a new Python-based tool that's license-free and open source, and it's a new application that the USDA has released. And that its core, the beta version, what it's doing is it's creating a new version of that template. It creates new geospatial SQLite SSURGO template databases, empty templates, and it'll let you import any SSURGO spatial and tabular data into the database. So it can store both the spatial and tabular, and it allows you to batch import many soil survey areas at once. This diagram kind of illustrates how it works. You get some SSURGO, you get SSURGO Portal, and it facilitates the creation and then data loading into the SSURGO template database. You get a SQLite file, either a geo package or a spatialite schema version, and then you can go work within GIS just like you would with an Esri file geo database. It's very similar to that structure. This is what it looks like. It's very bare bones. We are going to make it look a little prettier in the future. We're working on that now. We'll have some additions to it for the new full release once we get past beta. And I'll mention what's going to be included in that, but that's what it looks like now. And just a couple more notes about it, and then I'm going to mention how you could learn how to use it. So it was released on October 17th, 2023. It's been out there for a while. Seems to be working for the people that have used it. It's kind of a soft release. We're looking for some feedback on it. And it creates the SQLite SSURGO template databases, so you can use it to create a new one, name it whatever you want, and then get SSURGO, get your hands on SSURGO, and then batch import SSURGO data into the database. And you can also delete SSURGO from databases with it as well. It's a little incomplete, though. Version 1.0 will have more bells and whistles, so what we included is some temporary tools to make it more usable. So outside of SSURGO Portal, we deliver GIS bulk downloader tools where you can quickly find data for the state or the entire country and download all the SSURGO to your machine. And then, there's one for QGIS and ArcGIS Pro here. And then we have this thing called SSURGO On Demand, which is like Soil Data Viewer. It's an aggregation tool that's built by a couple people in the Soil and Plant Science Division that does a nice job of producing aggregated results similar to Soil Data Viewer. You won't get everything that's in Soil Data Viewer, and it will add new tables to the database of the aggregation results that you can then make maps from. Again, these are temporary tools that will ultimately be replaced with functionality in SSURGO Portal, but we put them out there so you can make use of the new SQLite template databases in case you're limited to Arc Pro and can't use Soil Data Viewer anymore. I did also want to mention DB Browser because a lot of people are unfamiliar with it, but if you start to use SSURGO Portal and new SQLite template databases, you probably want to download this because it's like Microsoft Access but it's free open source product. So you can view what's in a database, you can see the tables and the columns, and you can write queries against the database, and you could export results out of the database. So here is a video that I'm not going to play that is 12 minutes long because we don't have enough time. I would have just done this live, but instead I recorded it. You could get it out of the slide deck if we share these slides, which I think we're going to do, but it's also in that links document that I referenced on, I think, item 3A. It'll take you to a YouTube video that will play this demo of how to use SSURGO Portal Beta. I think it'll give you enough information to get up and running. So if you're interested in SSURGO Portal Beta, watch the video. It's pretty painless, pretty quick. All right, I'm going to skip on here to the SSURGO Portal 1.0. Where are we going in the future? So I work with the development team that's developing the new version, and so I can see the path forward here. And what we're going to do is build in the SSURGO downloaders. So there won't be external GIS tools that you have to download and install. It'll just be in the application, and you'll be able to batch down any SSURGO you want a variety of ways. We've already done the item 2 here. It's just not released yet. We're going to produce grid versions of those polygons, those vector polygons that are in the database. So that's pretty cool. There'll be geotiffs that show the soil mapping of polygons, which is great when you're working with big databases. Very similar to the SSURGO if you've worked with that. And we're going to have STV built in. We're about 80% of the way there from full functionality of having STV up and running. We might even have a prototype available here by the end of the summer of that's available upon request. So don't hesitate to email the hotline. Say, hey, you got that full SSURGO portal yet that I can test out? Let us know if you're interested. We're going to improve the UI, improve the installation process. If you do install it, you'll see it's a little clunky. We're going to get it cleaned up, and we're going to consolidate some of these guidance documents that are referenced in that demo video. Release is targeted for early 2025. It's hard with software development. We hope we get it there. There's always a lot of pieces to getting a polished product out the door. And then eventually, once it's up and running and we're happy with it, we're going to get it directly incorporated into the Web Soil Survey website so you can just get it there. And just to be clear, that Microsoft Access Template Database, Soil Data Viewer, and SSURGO Portal will all coexist for some time. So we're not taking anything down just yet, but eventually Soil Data Viewer and the template database, the Access Template Database, will go away. Eventually it could be 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. I don't know when it'll be, probably closer to that 3 to 5 range. All right, SSURGO derivatives, and then I'm almost done. I'll hand it over to Shawn. So we have 2 databases that we produce from that SSURGO product internally and then publish it out on a box account. We've been doing this for a while. So we make these large databases for you that you can download. Many of you are probably familiar with these. The first one is SSURGO. It's an Esri file geodatabase, and it's not scale limited like the Access Template Database and Soil Data Viewer. So we deliver databases for each state in the country and for the entire country. There's a large one for the entire country. And it's built from the official Web Soil Survey SSURGO data each fall, and has the spatial and tabular data in it, and also has a gridded and vector version of those polygons. So we have the original vector version, and then we made a grid as well. And then there's a nice little tool called Create Soil Map that's pretty much the same thing as Soil Data Viewer, slightly different, but it's the aggregation engine for working with the SSURGO database. So very powerful product, well liked, loved even by some, and it's been around for a while. And then we have this other product that is built off of SSURGO called GNATSCO. So it's basically the same schema as SSURGO, but you might recall that I showed the status map, and we have areas where there's no data. Some of you probably are working in those areas, unfortunately. So we, while we work on producing true SSURGO for those areas, we have this GNATSCO product to give people a complete coverage product by gap filling the SSURGO with this general soil map product called StatsCO, which is very coarse, but it's better than nothing for those areas. We also burn in a newer product we're working on called raster soil surveys. I'm not spending much time on that because there aren't very many acres of these yet. These are new digital soil mapping products. They're very limited in scale. We anticipate them growing in size over time, but I don't think many of you will be working in areas where you'll encounter the RSSs. So this is intended for large-scale geographic analysis because of the StatsCO piece. So you won't want to zoom in on a small watershed and use this because you might run into StatsCO data. But if you're working over many counties or a state, or maybe even a county, this is a decent product to work with, particularly at that state and CONUS level scale. Just to illustrate what this looks like visually, this is a drainage class for the country by dominant condition from GSURGO. There's all the gaps, and here it's filled in with GNATSCO. So you can see at scale, we can get a nice continuous map here with the GNATSCO product. But we have problems with these. And this is partly why we're not using GSURGO as our solution instead of SSURGO Portal. And it's why we went to SSURGO Portal. It requires an expensive SRE license for full functionality. And that Create Soil Map tool I referenced, it's limited to ArcGIS desktop, just like Soil Data Viewer. So if you're stuck on Pro, you don't have desktop, you can't use the Create Soil Map tool with GSURGO. You can't aggregate. And GNATSCO as well. The Create Soil Map tool has some issues too. It was built by one person. He's retired. It's great, but occasionally has a bug. Occasionally produces results ever so slightly different than Soil Data Viewer. Nothing too concerning, but we want to have consistency. So there's a couple problems here that made us not use GSURGO as our solution for delivery of replacing the Soil Data Viewer and the Access template. So what's the future of GSURGO and GNATSCO? If you're users of these products, no immediate changes in the future. We'll create them again and publish them in the fall of this year after the annual soils refresh on October 1. It's unclear, though, what the long-term future of GSURGO. We may and very well might likely stop creating these databases, instead direct people to SSURGO Portal, because SSURGO Portal is basically making the same type of product. It has the grid and the vector, and so they basically equal each other. GNATSCO, this product is unique. It's different than GSURGO and can't easily be created by you guys, so we'll continue to produce this in some fashion in the future. And we'll publish it each year. It's just that we'll probably convert it to using the GeoPackage database format that comes out of SSURGO Portal. So we won't use the Esri Geo file geodatabase sometime in the future. We'll just transition it to this other format. And then you'll work with the Soil Data Viewer in SSURGO Portal for GNATSCO. I think this slide could be helpful here before I wrap up my talk and hand it to Shawn, because I've covered a lot. We have a lot of tools that work in some things and not other things. And the main two things are ArcGIS Desktop and ArcPro for this audience. What works in what and what doesn't work in the other thing. And so here we have, I'm going to go through each one quickly. We have the Microsoft Access template. Doesn't work in Pro, works in desktop. Soil Data Viewer doesn't work in Pro, works in desktop. GSURGO and GNATSCO, they work in both, but note the asterisk there. It does not have full functionality in Pro, because this tool, Create Soil Map, does not work in Pro. So note the no there. SSURGO Portal, the template database, it's accessible in both products, and SSURGO On Demand will generate results that will work in both products, as you will see in the demo. And then I think this is my last slide here, Shawn, so it'll be coming over to you shortly. So the SSURGO Portal solution. So what problems is this solving here? Try and summarize that. Well, we have the Microsoft Access template database and the GSURGO, GNATSCO databases. I think all of these eventually are going to be consolidated and be replaced by the SQLite SSURGO template database schema in the coming years. Soil Data Viewer, that's going to go away and be replaced by and Create Soil Map, and that's going to be replaced by the Soil Data Viewer that's going to be embedded in SSURGO Portal that we're about 80% complete on. And then those GSURGO rasterized polygons and GNATSCO rasterized data, they will ultimately be replaced by GeoTIFF files produced by SSURGO. Okay, I'm done talking. Hopefully I didn't go too long. Over to you, Shawn, for edit.
Thank you, Kyle. That was a marathon session. I appreciate you giving me the introduction. I will try to share my screen real quick. I assume it's coming through. My name is Shawn.
Looks great.
Oh, good. Thank you, Cory. My name is Shawn Salley. I will talk about ecological site data and the edit database. This concept might be new for some of our cooperators who've only worked with the soil data side. That gets us where we are in space, but the ecological sites provide us the temporal component of soils, or where we are in time. Kicking off my slides, we are now looking at a soil landscape block diagram, which we will also see on the next few slides, and it will help illustrate what are ecological sites, how ecological sites store information about the soil's ecosystem dynamics, and how we identify the soil ecological site. So soil block diagrams show the soil landscape relationships, and this block diagram is of Daniels County, Montana, from an '85 survey showing soil landscapes which have formed in till and alluvium. and I've added colors over those landscapes to show the different ecological sites. The ecological site does have a formal definition, which that it is a distinctive kind of land that exhibits specific characteristics such as soil, parent material. It differs from other kind of land. It produces a distinctive kind and amount of vegetation, and it responds similarly to management and disturbance. The similar response to soil to disturbance and management is a challenging concept from a classification perspective into this temporal dimension, but also a very important concept for linking soils to sustainable or climate smart conservation practices. On this slide, I have shown two simplified state and transition models for two ecological sites on the block diagram. The state and transition model, or STM, describes states, thresholds, management conditions leading to the formation of alternative states. They are organized into a series of boxes, which are the ecological states, and arrows, which are the state transitions. States can be represented by the ecological structural class or some foundational plant community species, and they should be stable or persistent over time to some degree and clearly distinguishable with cover data. The ecological state are connected by transitions, which store information on state change triggers, reversibility, restoration management practices. And to give an example from this top STM, from the steeper sloped soils in the diagram, it shows three potential states, grass, savanna, and shrubs. The arrow between them, the grass and savanna state, would be triggered by some combination of drought, grazing, a change in the fire dynamics, something that allows shrubs to encroach. And here it crosses a threshold that is some percent of shrub cover as the state comes into an equilibrium with this new disturbance regime. Arrows going back to the ecological state show that it is reversible and would have some management or conservation practice information in the database or the knowledge system. There are two ways to find the ecological site for any soil. First is through some key, a dichotomous key, which are organized by the MLRA, the Major Land Resource Area, which are geographically associated resource areas, similar climate, land use. And on the right, we have a key example where through criteria of landscape, geology, slope, we can divide the diagram into ecological sites. So as an example, to work through this key, let's do the steeper sloped soils in green. It is in a runoff position, formed in glacial till parent material, and is higher than 8% slope. Of note, the soil scientists who mapped these soils split this ecological site into two different soils based upon hill slope profile position, shoulder and back slope, it looks like. And from an ecological site perspective, those soils can produce similar vegetation and respond similar to disturbance and management. So maybe different soils, but mapped as the same ecological site. The second way to find ecological site for any soil is through our soil maps. And here I want to briefly address the map unit component of soil map polygons. Ecological site concepts are correlated with the map unit component. And soil scientists know quite well that soils do not occur across the landscape in a very convenient fashion at the scale of what we map soils. So the soil mapper has to often put multiple soil components into a polygon. Here I've shown the blue upland soil formed in till, which could be mapped as a single polygon where there are major and minor map unit components. And we don't explicitly map these components, as Kyle mentioned earlier, but we do provide the soil and ecological data that Tammy and Kyle have already discussed. You use tools like Web Soil Survey or other products to get at this information. I do want to point out here through this example that inclusions or also minor map unit components could have different ecological sites. Different soils that respond differently to disturbance in the same polygon. So when it comes to both soil and ecology, scale continues to be our nemesis. Before I show where we go to access the ecological site data, I want to briefly discuss the scale of ecological sites and where they fit in the land resource hierarchy. Here we are looking at a figure that shows the relationship of our site concepts with other soil survey products. So with such short time, I can't go into great detail about everything ecological sites, but know that the ecological site class concept at the lower end that I showed in the block diagram at the earlier generally has higher specificity and a lower degree of generalization. It could be used to identify things like thresholds to manage state change, seed mixtures for rangeland restoration, among other things. Another concept we are quite actively developing, driven mostly in part by demand from federal soil survey cooperators in the Forest Service and the BLM, is the ecological site group concept. It's generally easier to map through digital soil mapping and allows us to provide top-down regional assessment of land condition or land health. On the left side of this figure, we could see different environmental variables that are more important at some scales, and on the right, we have the historic cartographic scale the concepts were mapped at, and that's a convenient way to crosswalk the hierarchy with other regionalization products like EPA ecoregions or U.S. Forest Service ecological units. Now, on to where we find the data, and that is EDIT. That is the Ecosystem Dynamics Interpretive Tool. EDIT is an online information system made to develop these concepts and share the state and transition model and any land management knowledge for those soils. It was developed and is currently housed at edit.hornada.nmsu.edu. And when you go to that webpage, you will see both the site and the group catalog. The EDIT database does have various web services or developer resources where you can access site information through an API for external applications with custom scripts. I am not going to go into that, but on the next few slides, I am going to show a series of screenshots. There's going to be a lot of text, forgive me, but hopefully this will show you what type of information is available and how you walk through the EDIT tool. After you click on the ecological site catalog, it brings you to this screen. If you click on the MLRA map, it opens this screenshot to where if you zoomed into whatever MLRA of interest, you can click on it. And on this next slide, I'm going to show you what happens when you click on a specific one. So here are two screenshots. On the left is that loading screen with the MLRA map, and on the right is the MLRA 77A or the Southern High Plains MLRA. I've already searched in there. If you know the name of your concept, I just typed sand. Here in this MLRA, 3 sand ecological sites come up. Sand hills, sandy loam, sandy. Now, as I mentioned earlier, another way to access that information is through a ecological site key. Here I've screenshotted the same thing on the left, and on the right is the actual key for MLRA 77A. And there's even more text here that I will definitely not be reading, but I wanted to show you an example of a full dichotomous key, which is quite a bit more detailed than my simple example at the start of the talk. So we are going to be exploring the first ecological site in this key. One second. The Playa ecological site. So if you read through the key, you will find out that this Playa site is in a run-in position of finely textured, low permeable soils. And in the next few slides, I am going to show different parts of the ecological site description. On this slide, I am showing the landing page of the ecological site. Ecological sites are sometimes referred to as ESDs, or the ecological site description. That term comes from this full description, which stores a ton of info into 4 major sections on site characteristics, plant communities, interpretations, and supporting information. On this next slide is the state and transition model for that Playa ecological site. It shows multiple stable or persistent states, which I am certainly not an expert in for this system, maybe outside of canoeing some of these playas during my childhood years. However, these stable state concepts appear to be based on persistence of water ponding on the site. So it has some general concept of state change. This one's based upon water depth, and each of them have their own disturbance regimes, for example. Digging in a little bit more, I want to look at the first two ecological states of this playa, getting more into the specifics of what ecosystem services the soil can perform, what can it produce. State one has plant species that reflect, say, a drier regime, wheatgrass, buffalo grass, vine mesquite. State two has a wetter regime, spikebrush, elder, rumex. This may mean something to people from this area. But each state also has this information of ecosystem services like net primary production, the relative composition of grass, forests, trees, or resource concerns such as soil, water, air, plants, animal concerns, human, even energy considerations are being looked at more and more. And the transitions between those concepts gives us information about state change triggers, the reversibility, any restoration management practices, links to NRCS conservation programs. Here, the transitions are relatively simple, based more upon persistence of water in the system. I do want to touch on one thing before I pass this back to Cory to talk about soil data on federal lands. One program of ecological sites that allow us to assess the soil's condition or its health is the interpreting indicators of rangeland health. We know that soils vary in their potential, so each ecological site must be assessed in relationship to a reference state. For rangelands, the EDIT database stores the reference sheet. For this program, on this sheet, we have a suite of soil and veg indicators that correspond to soil site stability, hydrologic function, biotic integrity. These are dynamic soil property indicators, which when judged against a reference is what is considered the optimal biophysical state for a desired land use and is based upon historical baselines or cultural perceptions. The interpreting indicators program ultimately provides us a way to say a departure of condition of what's expected through extreme total, moderate, none to slight. Many folks across NRCS are actively working on developing these reference sheets, as well as finishing out ecological site and ecological site group concepts for the country. This work is ongoing. It is a priority for the Cooperative Soil Survey to classify, to map, and to provide information on how to sustainably manage this temporal domain of soil. So with that, I will pass it back to Cory. Thank you.
Thanks, Shawn. I just have two really quick slides. We wanted to talk about the Federal Lands Advisory Group because this is a National Cooperative Soil Survey presentation seminar, and we're interested in all our partners across the National Cooperative Soil Survey. So many of you are here who are not with the federal agency, and we're welcome and so excited to have you here. But many of us are with our federal partners. So the Federal Lands Advisory Group was established for the purpose of facilitating development and maintenance of soil and ecological inventories on our nation's federal lands. As you can see from those maps, most of those lands are private, but we do get into our national park, BLM, and Forest Service holdings. So the National Cooperative Soil Survey is how we work through making sure we're meeting those needs. We want to improve communication and partnership, develop cooperative solutions for coordination of soil and ecological inventory activities. But really what we want to do is make sure we keep talking to each other. So we meet annually in person. We try to at least meet once a year in person. And then we also talk and chat throughout the year so that we can understand the needs for our National Cooperative Soil Survey partners and our federal partners. And so we understand the types of soil data products they need. This training came out of those conversations. We're looking to do many more trainings like this. We want to make sure folks understand and have access to the best soil products that we have available, and whatever we can do to customize those products or deliver them in a way that recognizes those unique missions and objectives of all the agencies and other partnerships that are represented here on the call. So Tiffany was not able to be here today, but she is the National Resource Soil Scientist for federal lands. So if you have questions specific to soil survey, soil data products on federal lands, by all means, please contact Tiffany. And if you have other questions about training, you'll get other follow-up emails from me and stuff, but you can contact me. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jay for our Lab Data Mart.
Great. Let me share my screen shared. Give me a sec. Okay. Everybody see my screen?
Yep, looks good.
Okay. Thank you, Cory. So yeah, I'm going to talk today about laboratory data that we have in the National Cooperative Soil Survey. So this is going to be a really quick talk, about 10 minutes, just an overview of kind of what data we have, where it is, how to get to it. So we'll start out with what it is. The Kellogg Soil Survey Laboratory is our sort of flagship soil survey lab that's been in operation for quite a long time. It's been in the building that it is in right now, or that it just left. It just moved to a new building, but it's been in the previous building at our National Soil Survey Center since 1974. It operates with a lot of rigorous standards. You can learn about it at this link here. And then in the system as well, we have cooperated laboratory data, which is primarily coming from university laboratories. And so land-grant universities partnered with us or had soil laboratories that ran samples through the years. And so that data is brought into our system as well. The data represents really high value data that provides a scientific underpinning for our products. And it also, you know, Kyle talked about boots on the ground. It represents a lot of effort by both our partners, so, you know, soil scientists past and present, who have cooperated and put a lot of time into gathering these samples, and then the additional lab work that's added on to them. The samples were analyzed and collected and analyzed primarily during the course of soil survey operations on these lands. And typically there was a full characterization sampling done. So that's like sampling the entire pedon, all the horizons for physical, chemical, mineralogical properties. They would support documenting soil series, soil classification questions that we had, special projects, those kinds of things. So a quick snapshot of the history of the samples that we have in the database. We have samples from 1950 to the present. We have about 67,000 georeferenced samples related to pedons, and an additional 15,000 samples that are related to sites. And so these might be kind of grab samples that were taken, maybe not a full pedon was described and sampled. You can see kind of over the time period of operation and the time period of the data itself, we've had some big spikes. We had some, you know, big efforts 10 years ago with the Rapid Carbon project. And we've also brought on some of the bigger cooperator labs like the University of Missouri. Had a lot of data that we brought into the system a few years back. When we look at the breakdown of samples on federal lands, we have, you know, as I said, this database really represents a lot of cooperative work. We have 4 service points. We have about 4,800 spread over all the regions. You can see the distribution there. Bureau of Land Management, we have over 1,400 points. National Park Service, over 900. Agricultural Resource Service, over 150. And then we have other smaller agencies, Department of Energy, Army Corps of Engineers, those kinds of departments and agencies have fewer samples than that. Okay, so the Lab Data Mart is our sort of distribution point for this data. And so to get to the Lab Data Mart, there's a couple of different ways, but the main link is that second link there. If you Google NCSS Lab Data Mart, you'll get to that. And there's another page that kind of goes over some of the features of the site and some aspects about the KSSL lab data that's in there. So when you get to the site, this is the this sort of splash screen that you arrive on, and up on the top there's a home link which brings you back to this page. There's a data usage which tells you how to properly cite the data if you're going to use it, and then the helpful links. You can see that down in the lower right hand corner has some different things about known issues, new features, how to use the querying interface. And the basic tabular query interface is this section here. There's an advanced expanded area of fields that help you, do a little expanded tabular type querying. The download section, clicking this link will take you to where you can download the databases for the entire data set. And I'll go over that a little bit later. And then as Kyle mentioned, the Soil Data Access, this data is available through Soil Data Access web services. So that's a little bit more advanced, a little less intuitive way to get to the data, but it's also very, very powerful. And then I wanted to call your attention to this locator map, which is the lower half of this screen that you come into. And we'll go over this in a little more detail. This map interface allows you to select the data based on a spatial area. And so we have in here some AOI tools to select an AOI. I'm going to take a rectangular tool here and draw an AOI. And I've drawn an AOI, zoomed in and drawn an AOI over Yellowstone National Park in that area. Now, if you connect on, or if you click on some of these icons up here, you're going to open up a dialog box. And the dialog box will tell you how many points you have within your AOI area and the associated lab data with them. So sampled pedons, the number of sampled pedons with geochemical data as well. If you click on that arrow, you can then click on the little ... there. If there is a number of pedons that's in that little line item, and it'll give you some download options. And so in this case, we'd be able to download those 60 some lab data points in those different formats. So there's a SQLite format, a Microsoft Access, and a GeoPackage format. If you go over to the map, you can also click on one of the points on the map, and it'll bring up a little dialog box that you can scroll through. That gives you a little bit of quick information about that particular point that might be helpful. And also embedded in there, in that dialog, is some links to the lab reports that can be output. Just to go over briefly some of the lab reports that we have in the system. Although the maps interface is new to this website, relatively new, we've kind of tried to retain some of the older reporting mechanisms. And so this is a real typical KSSL primary characterization data report that most folks would be used to seeing coming out of the lab. And so a lot of people like this report because they know where to find certain data elements on it. In addition to that, we have the site and pedon information related to that sampling site, and the horizon in a narrative format, the horizon description. If you query the data tabularly, this is sort of what is returned when you go through that process, and you'll get a list of pedons that can then be checked here, and then you can go down to the lower part of the page and select a report and generate different reports from that page. So going back to the databases for download section, if you were to pull down all of the data all at once, there's different tabs on this page. There's a tabular only. There's tabular with the spatial data, so with the point file included. There's the companion PET-ON morphological data, so that's the PET-ON description that was described at that site as well. And then there's an MIR tab for the MIR spectral library. And that part of the website, the KSSL has been doing a lot of work in the spectral area with MIR, and that is really kind of being built out. You can look for some improvements to that page coming soon. And then lastly, I wanted to point out some metadata down here at the bottom. This is really useful information. The metadata, like Kyle mentioned, you can get to what's called the table columns report in here. If you click the category dropdown, you can get to that report, and you can use the search functionality on the right-hand side to then search for different properties that you'd like to find in the data, figure out what those columns are to be able to chase them down. So it's a very useful section of the website. In addition to that, if you wanted to go and challenge yourself to get this data through Soil Data Access, it's very important to also know this sort of table structure of the data and how the tables are related, because you'll have to basically develop an SQL query that will hit the Soil Data Access web services and then pull that data back through. And so that's a useful diagram as well to look at in the metadata. And lastly, the Soil DB package for R has a function in it called fetch LDM. And the fetch LDM function really helps to kind of do some of the heavy lifting with these web services through SDA. And it will retrieve the data, reshape the data into site level and horizon level information. And then you can really use a lot of the kind of advantages of the utility functions that are in R for the AQP package to do different plots of profiles or property depth type plots. There's a lot of different possibilities there. So that's all I have. I'll pass it back to you, Cory.
All right. Well, thank you. We are over time, so we understand if people need to leave, but we're also here to answer some questions. I have been tracking the questions in the chat. And so one that came up, Tammy or Kyle, I think it was maybe you, Kyle, who asked the email address for custom data requests. Is that the hotline?
Yes. The
Okay.
soils hotline.
And Tammy, where again can we find the hotline?
You're on Web Soil Survey under the Contact Us. You'll find the email, and I'll also put it in the chat.
Awesome. Great.
Can I just add to that, Cory?
Yeah.
Not just custom data requests. If you're working with any of the products that we've highlighted today, or have questions about other things we did not cover, feel free to contact the hotline. That is your point of contact, and we can put you in contact with the appropriate person. So if you wanted to learn more about edit, we'll get you hooked up with the people like Shawn, Salley, and others in the edit arena. Learn more about lab data, we'll point you in the right direction. But we certainly can help with the custom soil data requests as well.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And you might have answered this, but there was one question that came up in the chat about the interps availability when you download SSURGO data.
Yeah, so I think the person that asked that, I was looking at that, and I'm thinking that they might be wondering like why we provide the aggregation tools to then do the interpretation yourself. So let me try and clarify. We have numerous interpretations of the soil properties built into the database already. Suitability for roads, drought vulnerability. Those interpretations are delivered at the component level. Remember, there's many components in a map unit. So each component gets a rating in the map unit. We then give you a tool, an aggregation tool, to decide how you want to aggregate in that map unit. I didn't get into that. Perhaps I should have, but there was only so much time. But we have dominant component aggregation methods and dominant condition aggregation methods. And so we have to let you make some decisions how you want to aggregate those interpretations, which we conducted in the database. We ran the interpretations. In addition, we just have all these wide open analysis that aren't really interpretations, but we just want to let you come up with an average clay content for the map unit and let you decide the depth range, let you decide the aggregation method, let you decide if you want to include the minor components or not. We often will provide guidance and conversations with people about what's appropriate, and we give you default settings, but we really wanted it to be open-ended so you could aggregate and interpret as you want.
Awesome, thank you. There was something, another question I have in the chat before I open it up is there a way to get new Soil Plant Science Division NASA's web reports where it can show forestry interps within Forest Service land? And if that's too big of a question, we can follow that up via email as well.
I would ask that person just to email me directly. I'll put my
Okay.
email in the chat and we can talk about that because I would need a little bit more information before I could properly answer that question.
Totally. So if you're the person who asked about the forestry interps on web reports, please note Kyle's email. He just put in the chat. And then I want to open it up to the audience. We still have just under 100 people on. Do anybody have any other questions for our speakers today? I'm going to do that thing where I count to my head for 10 seconds. All right, with that, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us for our pilot seminar for National Cooperative Soil Survey Partners Training. I have put the link in the chat several times for the feedback. We're really interested in hearing from all of you about what we should do next. We're looking to deliver these at least quarterly, maybe more. So we're looking for what to do next. So send us your feedback. And as you saw in the chat, you'll be getting an email from me that will have the link to where this video is posted. It will have the link to the slides that we are going to share, and it will have the feedback form link again as well. Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of your day.